And we have people visiting, or people that have logged in remotely and are participating. There's 10 or more already signed up. I'm sure there's going to be more as we move along. So one of the things we wanted to start off this afternoon is talking about the vision for the college and where we're going and what we want to become. And this is important because people have often said, well, what is our vision? What do we want to become? There have been people that have sat next to Dr. Adrian and said, well, Dr. Adrian, what is your vision? So we've put something together that helps to tell some of the story. Some of it is, and I got to thank Aaron and his team with a lot of the data. You know, anytime we start having charts and data, Aaron's helped us with that to tell the story of where we have come from. And then we can talk about the direction we're going, and we can have a discussion about what we've listed here. A lot of what we... Oh, someone have a kid in the background at home? I thought it was someone's phone.
Hardware working from home.
Okay. So where was I at?
Aaron, thank you, Aaron.
So some of the things that when we talk about where we want to be is based off of information that we have in our educational master plan, what we have vetted as a college, discussions that have taken place, enrollment management plans, a variety of different things. So then we'll share that information. Okay, so as we start talking about what we want to become, let's talk about, is there an on switch for this? Or is it? What if you click on the PowerPoint? Okay, there we go. So let's talk a little bit about our ethnicity. So the blue, if you can't see it very well, the blue is where we were in 1997, in fall of 97. The green is 2007, and fall is 2017. So over 20 years where we were and where we are now. So you can see our African American population has grown slightly. Our Asian population has grown a tiny bit. It actually dipped for a little while and then came back. Our Hispanic population has almost tripled. Our unknown, or they haven't clarified, has dropped off. I think, counselors, why do we think this has changed as a percentage, has dropped? Are we any counselors in the room? No, we don't have any counselors. Okay, Dan?
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
I'm making an assumption that it has dropped because we are now, a couple reasons. One is they're coming to meet with counselors. We're needing to clarify things for financial aid reasons. They're needing to identify more information, scholarships. So I think we've done a better job of asking students to actually answer questions, but that's purely an assumption on my part. White, non-Hispanic has declined, what, to 40% as far as a percentage. These are percentages, right? So you can see where there's been a shift in who are we serving. This, though, how many of you remember having a discussion about 10 years ago? Well, maybe it was not even that long ago, where we had the El Punto group come. And what did we say we wanted to do? We wanted to increase this population. And why is that?
They're in our neighborhood.
Yes, because they are our population, to more closely mirror the population we're serving. So I think we're pretty close there. Aaron might know more about that, how we match the population. The age, again, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, and where we are now. Biggest changes, where do you see them? 20 to 24 has increased, going from 12% to up to 19.3%. An increase in 25 to 29. 30 to 34 increased a little bit. And then we had a decrease in the 35 to 39, 40 to 49, and a big increase in the over 50. A decrease, I'm sorry. Big decrease in the over 50. A lot of that is probably because of changes we did with emeritus. Although I was thinking emeritus changed more than 10 years ago.
Yes, it did. It was.
Yeah, because, so I don't know, maybe we changed right after that because I would have thought it dropped quicker. So it used to be when I came to the college 20 years ago, we would talk about the average student was a female worker with a family around 34 years old. And now I don't think that's the average anymore. It definitely slid over closer to 30, 29, 28. It's getting younger. There's often been a lot of talk, so I'll acknowledge where we're at. Talk about the 19-year-olds, the 20 to 24-year-olds, and so forth. If you looked, even the 25 to 29, 30 to 34, that was our core for many years. That's still growing. But anyway, you could see where our population is going with our breakdown. No, I'll do it. That's fine. So the unit load, again, it's the non-credit is much higher than it was before. Actually, okay, you're right. It's lower than it was before. I'm sorry, went the other way.
Higher.
The gray is 97. The blue, yeah, I think you switched colors on us. Yeah, Aaron. Okay. But here's the thing that is everything above here is increased. So anything at 30 or 3 units and above have all increased, and that's very telling. So bottom line is students are taking more units than they used to in the past, and that is very helpful as far as the number of units they've been taking. The number of non-credit has changed, but also, as Linda here, we also have went through some major changes over the years. So there were times when we told ESL, hey, do non-credit. And then we came back years later and said, hey, shift those to credit. So some of this is some of that going on, as well as other things that we have happened as far as having non-credit on the lowest levels and so forth. So there have been a number of changes that have taken place. So this isn't just looking at those student populations. That would also include, I'm assuming special ed would also be included in that total. Now, here's where I think we should all be very, very proud. Degrees and certificates. Degrees in blue, certificates in green. And you could see where we were, the little small chart here, and where we came. So from 181 degrees in 96, 97 to 2,200 a year ago. Funding model, this is going to be very important for us because the funding model is predicated on partially FTS, part of it partially degrees, especially degrees in ADTs. So the ADTs are a small piece of this, but anyway, that's very important. Certificates also, yes. Yes, you're right. We've tripled our certificates. Well, we got a little dip here. You got to. Okay, so when we look externally, some of our competition, threats, and regulations that we have to consider. So competition, I think some of these jump out at you as things you're not surprised. The increase in online programs. We know across the state there are many, many online programs across the state now. We have 9 community colleges in our area and 30 institutions of higher education in Orange County. So that is a challenge. Even if you drive from here to Orange Coast College, how many higher education institutions do you pass? 3 or 4 at least. Western Governors, National, it used to be Whittier Law School. I don't know if they're still there anymore, if they've closed already. Yeah, I think there's closer to 6 or 7 in that same area, that same intersection. The CCC, the Chancellor's Office Online Virtual College, I think it depends on how you look at it from one perspective. The virtual college is not actually a college as much as it is letting you know about all the different schools that have degrees that you can take online classes. But the fact that they're helping everyone to know about those classes is somewhat competition. Zero cost materials. Is that creating competition for us as far as which college has zero cost and how students are making choices? We assume so. We don't have the data yet, but we assume that is the case. Guaranteed enrollment, enroll for a year, So this is going to be coming as part of, well, I'm not sure.
It's the
Yeah,
Coastline.
why don't you talk about that one?
Wait. So, one of the institutions that was awarded $1 million for innovation is, for the last 2 years, West Hills College and their entire district has guaranteed enrollment for an entire year if the students sign up for 24 units within a year's time frame. So the students are guaranteed a year of enrollment, and then based on that guarantee, they've been able to fill classes and keep students persisting through and completing. One of the first colleges in the state to do it, was recognized by the state for that and given a $1 million award. I think that'll start expanding. I know Sacramento's trying to do the same.
Yeah, so you can see something similar with the, what are they calling it? The California Promise. First year, and you do certain things, you get have 12 units, and then your first year would be free. Here's some of the threats, not surprising to most of you, I don't think. The threat of 115th online or college, which would be online. It is based on a competency-based model. It is, in some respects, different, but it's really competing for the worker that's in the vocational fields, the CTE areas. Well, we'll see. All I know is what the chancellor's office come out with. So what, for the people that are remote, one of the things that was said in the air is that CCAOE, which is the CTE group, had mentioned that they're going to be doing be accredited and offer degrees and certificates through the online college. That wasn't what the governor or that's not what the chancellor shared, but who knows? It changes rapidly. Declining enrollment. We, as community colleges, we are struggling. Most colleges are staying stagnant. Any small growth or small declines. I'm not hearing a lot of people that are growing tremendously. Lower high school graduation rates. We haven't started to see this yet, but the forecasting is that in Southern California, you're going to see fewer and fewer graduates because they're not there at the K through 6 right now. So that's going to be coming. Increased competition. So as a result of what happens, all of us in higher education, if you start declining in enrollment, you tend to lose revenue. So we're all fighting for that. Students are more savvy customers. So that's a threat, but how do we combat that threat? Being savvy customers, so why would that be a threat to us?
They're good at shopping around.
Okay, someone said because they're shopping around and then making selections based on the rate my professor or the quality of instruction. I'm going to say the quality of instruction, the cost, if they have zero cost textbooks, the distance they have to travel, ease of applying, ease of getting. So, and if you talk about outside of the California Community College system, not only the ease of applying, but the ease of getting everything you need. How many of you did a bachelor's or a master's program at a, not a public institution, but something like National, Argosy, Capella, University of Phoenix? Any of, come on, I know there's another person back there that went to one of those organizations, one of those universities. Everyone went through the California public education system? How many privates? Okay, or private or not public. And did they meet your needs very easily? Yes. So, and people on the, at the other centers, we had about 15 hands go up and they were not in their head that yes, the privates generally met their needs very well, where maybe the publics didn't always do that. So customers are very savvy. Unreliable funding, that's always a challenge for us because we've, most of us have been here long enough when we went through the budget crisis that we were forced to cut. We didn't have as much money and we were forced to cut, and many of the colleges are still trying to recover from that recession that happened. Some of the regulations and legislation we have to worry about, accreditation mandates, increased accountability, state and federal funding. Just about any time we get any more money now, it's tied to some type of accountability or some requirement. Performance-based outcomes funding. I started talking about a little while ago. The performance-based is going to be based on Again, part of it is the FTS we get, so the enrollments. Part of it will be based on students completing degrees, especially in the ADT areas. Part of it will be the Pell eligible students that we serve. Am I missing a fourth part, Christine? Those are the three, those are components. So us having students graduate is going to be important. Now we're in a very good situation because if you looked at the demographics before, the degrees, we are going in the right direction on degrees and certificates, and our Pell eligible students is very high. So based on the model that was provided, we would actually increase as a district in funding based on the model that was proposed. The problem is no one sees a way that that model fiscally can function without hurting other colleges tremendously next year. So most people do not see this funding model coming out next year. It'll take a while before we get there. Economic instability. Actually, right now it's been fairly stable, but we've been through those recessions when we hit that economic downturn where it creates a lot of challenges for us. The proposed 115th college, we already talked about that. Competency place, flexible scheduling, and then funding formula changes, we've talked about that. So those are some of the outside regulations. So with that, and this has had a lot of input from Dr. Adrian as far as where we see ourselves becoming or what we think we want to look like. And do me a favor, take some notes or think about it, and let's go through the slide, and then we'll get some feedback. So student experience. Students will be very student-centered, focused on success, however they define it. Coastline distinguished ourselves with the experience. So we've been talking a lot about us distinguishing ourselves from other colleges based on the experience of our students and how we can recruit students and keep students based on that. Equity-minded. So those of you that were in the sessions earlier this morning, we talked about that in the definition of guided pathways. Equity-minded, parity and student educational outcomes, moving beyond access to success. We had a discussion at lunch that, and you saw it from the change in demographics. From an access perspective, how do you think we've done in the last 20 years? We improved or went down? Based on, so I would say access, we've improved. We provided a lot of access. We are starting to mirror our demographics of our community much better because we've provided access and we've helped them get to our college. It's not just those that have the means, that have the financial resources, that have the socioeconomic background of a family member that has already graduated and helps them to get to college. So those students that are first generation, we're getting those students. That's why we're seeing a higher Hispanic population. But we need to change from focus on access to success. And I think some of you that have been in my presentations in instruction and enrollment management over the last 10 years, you remember we used to have a picture of access and we'd have an arrow pointing, we're switching from access to success. So that's what we're going to continue to look at. Having a reputation of being innovative, nationally recognized for our academic programs, universal access for our programs and services, integrated, purposeful, and proactive support systems. Again, the systems that we would, support systems we'd have to, for that student experience. And then outstanding student outcomes and models of innovation in the community college system. So this is a reputation that we aspire to have. Academic focus, that at our Garden Grove campus, this is very similar to where we are focusing. Focus on CTE, cybersecurity, and business-related areas. Newport Beach, offering SAM, meaning science, arts, and mathematics-related certificates and degrees. Some of the situations where we talk about certificates might be new non-credit certificates, like in math, to get, or enhanced non-credit for the students that are needing remediation. Westminster, offering critical thinking, humanities-related certificates and degrees and transfer. We were talking earlier, humanities usually means the language arts and humanities are usually coupled together. Ours are separated. Virtual campus, offering complete certificates and degrees for transfer. I think we do fairly well there, but we can always do more. Outcomes, that we'd increase the number of full-time students. And I think that is one, is increasing the percentage, which is going the right direction already. Our false far persistence rates would get to 80%, so we'd retain those students. Sustain enrollments at 7,000 FTS. Again, that's by 2025. Right now we'll be at 6,200 this year. So it's barely 100 FTS a year. 100% of courses have zero and low cost materials and offer online bachelor's degrees. So when we talk about a vision and you ask Dr. Adrian, where's the vision? This is something that's came out of all of our plans as far as saying, this is where we see ourselves going or becoming. Any thoughts, concerns, flags? Elizabeth.
I just had a question for your outcome when it's 100% of courses have zero or low cost, how the college has defined low cost for their outcome, or have they yet?
Okay, so the question in the back was, how have we, on zero or low cost, how have we defined low cost as an institution? And I don't know that if we have, is Scott here? If we have through the, Sasha?
I know Dan told me it was 40 and under.
Okay.
So from my understanding, it's a rough discussion that's happened at the Senate when they're talking about OER, but overall the college has not put a number yet.
Right. So for those of you remotely, someone mentioned that they had heard that it would be 40. Someone else mentioned that it would be 45. And it was pointed out, while we've started discussions as an institution, we haven't said this is it. Not like what we've said earlier with guided pathways definition, that this is our definition. So it does beg the question. Absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly.
If you can do that bottom.
A great place to work with a cohesive team of faculty, staff, students, and a can-do attitude. Yes. Thank you, Shelley, for not.
That was Dr.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Lori. I think that's important. And I think because we're going to have a lot of work ahead of us as far as when we're implementing guided pathways and focusing on how can we do a better job for our students. And if we can do that and making it a great place to work a team that we enjoy working together, it's a lot more fun than when you're all a team than when you're not. So I appreciate that and focus on that, and that Dr. Adrian wanted to make sure that we definitely pointed that out. Okay, so the question is, does it matter if they're online or off or on-site full-time equivalent students? It does and it doesn't. In one respect, we want to hit our FTS target. It does affect us about the ratio because we do have centers and we can't have them not being utilized. So that does require some FTS that needs to be site-based. If you look at our enrollment management plans, we have talked about the need to grow the site base, but those plans usually do not show a growth that's so fast-paced that it's unobtainable. It is trying to get at a realistic, slow and steady increase that is truly achievable, because we don't want to set goals for ourselves. So yes, there is a mix in enrollment management plans. For example, we talk about from 3 years from now where we'll be. But our biggest opportunity for growth is usually online. Okay. Any other comments about this? Joycelyn?
I just want to also point out, as we look at data, currently, and correct me if I'm wrong, we report our graduate rates from our military corporate education program. We don't contribute to FTES. So when we talk about outcomes, specifically to FTES, I would say with enrollment, we're looking in contract ed as increase or sustaining enrollment to generate income. And I don't see that as part of the vision in the terminology that's used. We might want to add something like that. And then with funding formulas, if we don't get FTES for our students, will our graduate rates count towards the funding model and looking at what we might need to do? I think I just wanted to share that. So as we look at data and goals.
Okay, so for those that are remote, Joycelyn was pointing out that a couple things. First off, that when we talk about the numbers here and we talk about 7,000 full-time equivalent students, that does not include contract ed enrollments. But when we do show graduates, they do. And primarily because those are numbers of what does the state record. State records full-time equivalent students that they pay us for, and they record all graduates that get degrees conferred by us. And that's why in contract education, the degrees count, but the enrollments do not, because enrollments are paid by federal government, not by the local government. And they are looking to increase that, but it's not in here. So that might be a valid point as far as in here, how do we address what we, goals for contract
Or I
education?
still look at it as goals as the whole college. To the point now, separate groups.
Okay. Okay. Any other comments? Questions? What does Dr. Adrian say?
She says that overall the vision is about having a highly respected and reputable brand distinguished by all of the above qualities. So really encompassing all of that. And just, I don't know if you announced to this group, but she's ill today. That's why she's not here. And she literally can't speak. That's why she's not helping deliver from afar either.
Highly reputable and what?
Highly respected and reputable brand distinguished by all of the above qualities.
Okay, so highly respected and replicable brand is what we're looking at with all of these qualities that are listed on the screen. And one of the other things to point out, I didn't talk about it in this session. Those of you that were in the morning sessions, Dr. Adrian would be here and would be up here talking about these, but she's very ill. And so she's home, she can't talk, she's texting in, and she is participating on us. And Dr. Adrian, hope you're feeling better. And any other comments about this slide? Okay. Oops. Oh, I guess we're at the end. That's why. So you didn't do anything wrong. Okay, so again, this is where we want to talk about being a great place to work, great place for our students, and we've a lot of focus on what the student experience will be. And I think that's very important because when we're talking about guided pathways, we're going to set up pathways and we're going to help students. Let's talk about how does that fit into that, and where do we want to be as an institution, and what do we want to look like as an institution. I'm going to walk in here so that if people are talking, they can talk into the mic so they can hear remotely.
This is not a plan. I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about the history and specifically how it plays into this. I know we talked about, the changing demographics and the external threats, but also specifically about the history of Coastline, because I think there's varying levels of understanding on that.
Okay, so how many of you have been here 30 years or more? Okay, there's 3, 4 of you. Okay, so the reason I asked that is I've only been here 20 years. What I know is from people before me that have shared, and by going back and reading through some of the items and reading through items like the first catalog schedule that was, like, I don't know, maybe 18 pages. So the college was founded, my understanding, and the others will keep me honest, I'm sure they will. College was founded because there was a point when the other colleges didn't want to serve certain populations. There was a desire to do distance education and leverage a portion that was something that was created for doing telecourses. And also because we had, right around the time the college was formed, had purchased KOCE television station so that we would broadcast those videos. One of the things that I want to hit home is I've heard people often say we're the college without walls. It's interesting because if I go to the first schedule, Bernie Luskin says the college beyond walls, because we had locations, we had walls, there were lots of walls. They just weren't owned by Coastline. They were many different centers, and most of which I don't even know where they were at. I talked to people like Dorothy, and I talked to Janice, and they talk about all the different centers and zone 1 or area 1 and areas, all the different areas. So what happened is when the college was formed, we set a record for enrollment, but we had a lot of site-based classes. We had very few distance education classes, and they were done in a variety of delivery methods. And I talked to people like Ted Barnes that talks about things that he would have his class and he'd put his lecture in the newspaper, and then the students would learn about the lecture by getting the local newspaper. So we had a lot of site-based presence, and that's something that we want to share, because oftentimes I'll be in discussions and people will say, we need to go back to our roots of all online or all at a distance. And we say, that wasn't our roots. Our roots were site-based, but we quickly grew in a distance education environment. So those of you that have been here longer than I, am I missing any key elements as far as our story or key things? Because I want to hit home that we always had these site-based. Celeste.
About the political atmosphere at that time and we were a community college. So any agency could come to the college, because we did have, my understanding, the role I played, we seemed to have a lot of money to do a lot of things. And a group could come to the community college and say, hey, I'd like a class in ballroom dancing. My husband and I took ballroom dancing before we got married at Coastline Community College, so we didn't get up in front of everybody and make a fool out of ourselves, you know. But we could do that, and you could get credit for it.
Well, and so the other challenge we've had over the years is, so that is, if I may, Celeste, it's really was tied to the original educational master plan for the state of California, whereas a lot of that lifelong learning, that taking classes just for learning's sake and lifelong learning, is not something that is currently embraced in our education plans right now. And as a result, you don't have that lifelong learning. It's a lot of the focus on ADTs and getting graduates and getting certificates. So we've changed. The hit list has come out. We don't do PE anymore. We don't do many of those activities. So some people have said we have switched from being a community college going back to junior colleges. Anne, is there something else you wanted to add as far as? Dorothy, you were going to say something.
What I remember though is only that that we were the college without walls, because we didn't own anything. Say that we had a lot of buildings and we had a lot of places, but they were all leased, so we didn't own anything. So that's why we were without walls.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where that evolved from. But it was interesting because I was talking to Jennifer and we were searching through the files that she has. And when we found the College Beyond Walls, I don't think she even remembered that. But that was something that Bernie Luskin, the initial president, had written in that first college schedule that was published. Linda, did you have a comment that you want to add about the history or anything to it?
No, just the general point that
all of the California community colleges have locally elected boards for a good reason. And that's so that we're in touch with the community. And I think we started out that way, being very much in touch with our community.
Okay. Well, thank you. And so I appreciate that, because one of the things that we want to hit home is when you talk about, well, let's go back to where we were in 1976. There are certain things we just can't do anymore. It's not part of what we are getting funded for. It's not what the state is expecting of us. And you're seeing those changes in a lot of the mandates that are coming out. And again, we did have many classes in many rooms, but we didn't own them. In fact, one of the maps shows we had over 100 locations when we opened, and approximately a dozen of those were within walking distance of Orange Coast College. We surrounded Orange Coast College. So people forget that. So when we talk about, well, you came closer to this college or closer to that college, actually, we've gone farther away from where we used to be many, many years ago. But people forget that part of it. And we... Is it possible that taking away those community type courses such as non-credit PE has decreased recognition in the area around our campuses? That's a very good question. For those of you that were at Costa Mesa, I think that probably does to some degree. It probably does. But then the question is, so are we as known as well because we don't have some of those community classes, but then also who was taking those community classes? So those of you that worked at Costa Mesa before it closed, 10, 15 years before that, the PE, the dance and things, who were taking those classes? It was emeritus. It was older population. So someone said the voters, which is very true. And that is very true. And so that's something I think to keep in mind, because it does change the population. Let's face it, the older citizens in our community do vote, I think, more often than our younger. Yeah, statistically, it's been proven. But so that's a very good question. I think it does change. But I also think that the others that are coming to our college are also voters and in our community. So the things that we're doing with the high school, I think, are expanding that, because now more of the parents are knowing about us when they didn't know before because of not as much outreach. But it's a very good question.
You might just, I don't need to just mention that we did do a 40th anniversary video with all the presidents with Bernie Luskin. We should repopulate that maybe on the Guided Pathways site, especially for the new folks, to see the perspective from the former presidents. So maybe we'll repost that again, that YouTube video for everybody. That's just something that we might want to put out there. And Shelley, to your question, be a good thing for you to watch as well. Yeah.
Okay, so the question was a reminder that on a 40-year anniversary, all of the prior presidents were interviewed, and we have videos of that. And so share those would be very helpful, because you could hear the stories all along the way. And then there was a question about what about Newport Beach using art and PE activity courses to gain awareness? And I think that's a very valid question, to gain awareness. I think the key is for what outcome? So we're going to an outcomes-based funding. So yes, do we want to raise awareness, and what is the positive outcome we're going to get in the new model? Part of it is FTS, so that helps. Does it help with degrees? Does it help with Pell-eligible students in degree applicable programs? Because those are the things that we're going to be looking for. Does it help us prepare students for college level courses? I'm saying that specifically because obviously our students that need remediation, there's a role for us to play in getting them there, but there's a big press to let's get them there very fast. If they're going to go into remediation, let's get them there quickly. Let's do it on non-credit and get them through that so that they can get on their way and out quickly. Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, I'll turn it.
We're just gonna take a 5-minute bio break, and then we're gonna come back for our meeting led by Rob.
All right, thank you. So we're gonna take a 5-minute break, and then Rob's gonna come back and operate our next session.
He just I know.